Hello users, and welcome to another episodic installation of Above It All. And so last night / this morning, there was a big thing happening in Portland. Donald Trump was basically promoting this big caravan of his supporters to crash through Portland. And as a result, they came. They had pepper spray, they had pepper balls, all that kind of like semi-cringe stuff, and they just drove through the streets of Portland shooting at random protesters. Now, this is one thing that is incredibly important given the context of the title of this video and what I'm going to talk about. As you can see, they're literally in the back of pickups just shooting at random people, pepper spraying random people, acting like vigilantes. This, my good friends, is what a civil war looks like. You have armed pro-government fascist vigilantes going through neighborhoods of left-wing cities and just attacking random people. Now, unfortunately, or rather fortunately, depending on your persuasion, this did not end too well for these people. But as you can see, there's more video of them shooting at random folks. It's a little embarrassing. It's just kind of like, again, there's no reason for any of this. There is, like, when police kill a black person, your response should be, damn, that sucks. Your response should not be, god dang, I'm gonna go goddamn fire up the F-150 and go down and like, if that's your response, you're a freak. You're an unhinged Looney Tune. But again, they don't care. Now, as you can see in this video, this is more video of them driving into crowds, which is a frequent right-wing terror tactic. Apparently, nobody was hurt. However, they're just driving into crowds, and they're just throwing shit. They're just trying. And again, this is what you need to understand, because there are a lot of misinformation campaigns, people that profit off of spreading fake news that are trying to tell you that protesters, Antifa, Antifa beat down Trump's. No. These are far-right neo-Nazi groups like Patriot going through Portland and trying to kill people. And then, unfortunately, or again, fortunately, depending on your persuasion, things did not end in their favor. Now, again, here we have footage of someone that was shot and killed. It is unclear. I have not seen any video of the shooting itself. To my understanding, it is unclear what led to that shooting, but I'm sure that we are going to be getting that information soon. And I've also got an AP report here that gives some basic information. But before I read that, I want to read a little bit of an older report from the Southern Poverty Law Center about what kind of tactics Patriot Prayer brings to the table. Now, I want to say this as a personal experience. I have been to protests where Patriot Prayer and Proud Boys and other of these groups were there. I have seen them do these things with my own two eyes, not on a camera, but in the flesh. Okay, so I have seen this happen. I know how they work, and I get their book. But I know a lot of people who follow me aren't people like me that go to protests. So I'm going to give you some info. The strategy of the far-right Patriot Prayer flash marchers on Saturday was much like that of their Proud Boy counterparts the night before in New York City. Assemble a ready-to-rumble crew with out-of-town violent extremists, then troll through the urban center in hopes of confronting left-wing protesters, ensuring violence eventually will break out. It worked, as it almost always has for Joey Gibson and his Patriot Prayer crew. Now again, if we look back here, someone was shot, and then we look and we see Joey Gibson in the crowd getting attacked by protesters. Attacked. No one actually hurt him. He was just being yelled at. But again, people like to have these complaints. Oh, someone was mean to me. Oh! But again, so, like, this is, like, from 2018, and they're using the same strategies right here. Okay, so this is what you need to understand. Though the flash march for Law and Order and PDX was hastily thrown together in a day or so, Gibson's group managed once again to force a massive police presence into downtown Portland and yet again provoked violence as multiple brawls broke out near the march's end. Now, this was 2 years ago. Okay, so the idea of what right-wing extremists would do is they would go to an area and then have counter-protesters there and then bait the cops into getting their riot gear and then leave, and then the cops would beat the shit out of protesters. That was the game, but now, as we can see, this is escalating. 2 years later, they're bringing actual, weapons, paintballs. They're bringing big monster trucks that they're driving into crowds. Like, they're actually, not only are they trying to instigate violence between police and protesters, they are directly involving themselves in this violence. And again, things did not go in their favor tonight. But I've got a story from the AP here. One person was shot and killed late Saturday in Portland, Oregon, as a large caravan of President Donald Trump supporters and Black Lives Matter protesters clashed in the streets, police said. It wasn't clear if the shooting was linked to fights that broke out at a caravan of about 600 vehicles was confronted by protesters in the city's downtown. An Associated Press freelance photographer, heard 3 gunshots, then observed police medics working on the body of the victim, who appeared to be a white man. The freelancer said the man was wearing a hat bearing the insignia of Patriot Prayer, a right-wing group whose members have frequently clashed with protesters in Portland in the past. Now, the rest of this article is just talking about the details that I've already explained. But the chaotic scene came 2 days after Trump invoked Portland as a liberal city, overrun with violence, in a speech at the Republican National Convention as part of his law and order re-election campaign thing. Again, this law and order thing doesn't really work if you're the president. You have to be campaigning against somebody and say, law and order. When you're the president and you say law and order, you just kind of look like a dullard. But again, right-wingers don't really care about that. Any excuse to kill, any excuse to try to get people into harm's way, that's their MO. The caravan marked the 3rd Saturday in a row that Trump supporters have rallied in the city. Trump and other speakers at this week's convention evoked a violent dystopian future if Democratic presidential hopeful Joe Biden wins in November, and pointed to Portland as a cautionary tale for what would be in store for Americans. Now, I've got another story I'm going to cover later today, where a bunch of MSNBC journalists went to the protesters and asked them what they're going to do in November, and they said nothing. They're not Biden supporters in the streets. The people in the streets, maybe you could convince them to vote for Bernie Sanders, but they're not voting for Joe Biden. But yet, Trump is trying to paint this as if this is Biden's, riots. Biden isn't in office. He's not doing anything. He's just a presidential candidate. So it doesn't make any sense. These aren't Biden people that are rioters and looters. They're not Biden fans. They don't like Biden. In fact, they hate Biden. You want to know why? Because these are people that agree with me, and I hate Biden. So the idea that they're trying to link them to Biden people is just, it's bizarre. It's strange. But again, it's all just gaslighting, muddying the waters to make you feel like a dumb and confused American. And say, well, maybe Trump's got a point. And they will use that nest egg to manipulate you into becoming one of these far-right terror machines, because that's their MO. And pointed to Portland as a cautionary tale for what would be in store for Americans. The pro-Trump rally organizer, who coordinated a similar caravan in Boise, Idaho earlier in the week, said in a video posted on Twitter Saturday afternoon that attendees should only carry concealed weapons, and the route was being kept secret for safety reasons. The caravan had gathered earlier in the day at a suburban mall and drove as a group to the heart of Portland. As they arrived in the city, protesters attempted to stop them by standing in the street and blocking bridges. So again, this is what the game is. Trump and the elites are stoking a war. And they don't want to have their corporate lobbyists go on the front lines. They want to send a bunch of dullards, right-wing neo-Nazis who are too dumb to realize that the Nazis are just using them, that the government is just using them as pawns in their little game, and they're trying to start armed conflict. You've got right-wing terrorists going to Kenosha and killing protesters. That's fresh in people's brains. And now you've got a Trump-supporting far-right Nazi group going to Portland, and then someone getting shot and killed. Now, there's more details to come out. I'm just reporting on this as I understand right now. I'm sure there's going to be more stuff even later today or by tomorrow. So if you see anything, let me know. But again, this is just to keep conflict. There's going to be a lot more of this stuff in the future, I think, if this trend holds true, okay? There have been a stunning and historic lack of violence at these protests and at these riots. When you compare to everything else in history, things have been, like, peaceful to the point of extreme caution. But that peace is starting to dissipate. When the Nazis march in and they decide we're going to start fucking shit up and try to kill people, shit is going to happen. And as you can tell, shit is happening. And I can only hope that things will get better, but they won't, because there's no sign in the future of things getting better. Trump's gonna win again? Okay, that's not going to help 75-80% of Americans. That's just going to make our lives worse. Biden wins? Okay, and he's not going to do anything to fix anything. This is going to be a battle for our lives in the United States of America, and there is no get-out-of-jail-free card. So the whole Trump thing, trying to tie this to Biden, is bizarre. We don't like Biden, we hate Biden, and we don't care about that shit. This is about us, this is about our communities, this is not the presidential election. Anyone who's trying to, someone in a supermarket did this, the presidential election is going to, all these rioters and looters are making people vote for Trump. It's like, what? Like, Trump is doing nothing. Trump is doing nothing. Whatever. Anyway, thank you for watching. Let's see how this story unfolds. I'll see you again soon.